sections and paints on them, but also like the fabric that she chooses is gonna be like different colored fabrics, and it's a process. I don't know how to make quilts, but yeah, it's definitely a skill.
And it's not like I like expected you to have the answer, but I'm like, I've seen some of this woman's quilts. They're like beyond belief. How did she do that?
Yeah, incredible.
Incredible. Mercury retrograde got you down? Do you need to laugh with or at someone? Do you like your social issues discussed with a side of Cardi B and Forensic Files references? Well, Thanks I Hate It is here for you. And let me tell you more.
Hi, I'm Brittany.
And I'm Windsor.
And we're the hosts of a weekly podcast that discusses social issues, throws shade at unsuspecting targets, and drinks from the bottom shelf. If you need a good laugh, subscribe to Thanks I Hate It wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks I Hate It is brought to you by the minds of two 30-somethings who make way too many pop culture references, even in the most obscure ways that they have no business being in. Thanks I Hate It will not cure your 2020 blues, but will give you a heavy dose of laughter to help lessen the pain.
Before the abolition of slavery, members of the Underground Railroad used quilts to mark escape routes and houses of refuge for runaway slaves during and after the Civil War. Most quilts were made for everyday use using fabrics. Scraps of fabrics. Right? Okay. So, after attempting unsuccessfully to have her autobiography published at the turn of the decade, Ringgold discovered a new way to tell her story. And I love what comes next, by the way. So, it actually, in my opinion, one of her biggest successes came from this failure, from her not being able to publish her book.
Oh.
So once more, she drew inspiration from Tibetan art, and in honor of her mother's early influence, Ringgold began a series of quilts that were perhaps her best-known work. Once more, drawing inspiration from Tibetan art, and in honor of her mother's early influence, Ringgold began a series of quilts that are perhaps her best-known works.
Honestly, the fact that, like, she can take something that, like, she just, like, witnessed as a child and, like, put that into her artwork, but not only, like, be inspired by Tibetan art, like, that is, like, so fucking beautiful to me. Like, wow. It's just amazing.
So she actually, she assembled her first quilt, which is called Echoes of Harlem, in 1980, a year before her mother passed away. So her mother did get to see it, and she actually worked on it a little bit with her. I've seen pictures.
Oh, that is so cute.
Right. It just breaks my heart.
Mother-daughter project. Oh.
And went on to make numerous others, eventually incorporating text as well. Among her narrative quilts are Who's Afraid of Aunt Jamala, which is, you know who she is?
Okay. I don't know who Aunt Jemima is.
So she's like the face of the syrup.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I was just like, wait, I thought, like, she was deemed to be, like, a fictional character, right?
She's based on a real person.
Is she really?
Yeah. So this work she made in 1983. She also made a tribute to Michael Jackson, Who's Bad, in 1988, and her most famous offering is Tar Beach Part 1 of the Woman on the Bridge series in 1988, which is now part of the Guggenheim Museum's permanent collection.
Wow.
Cool, huh?
Okay. Wait, so, like, did her quilt to the tribute for Michael Jackson, like, where is that currently? Do you happen to know?
I don't, but that would be a very excellent question for Google. But I do know that, so pretty much her quilts were actually a storytelling device for her. She actually incorporated text into these quilts, and if you really like, if you take a look at some of her quilts, like they have storyboards almost and different like text in them. So Ringgold had became a professor of art at the University of California in San Diego, where she taught until 2002. Displaying yet more talent, beginning in the 1990s, Ringgold embarked on a literary career, publishing a children's book, Tar Beach. So that was actually the name of one of her works, Tar Beach. The one that's displayed in the Guggenheim Museum.
Oh my gosh.
She actually was asked to convert that piece into a children's book.
And this was kind of because of, like, the storyboard was on the quilt, right?
Yeah, because it was such a good story on this quilt that they were like, this could be a children's book.
It just has to be shared.
Yeah, so they pretty much were like, do you think we'll give you 32 pages? Do you think you can make this into a children's book?
And she, hello?
Yeah, so she pretty much, like, illustrates a couple of pages for this book, and then all the text that was just on this quilt, she transfers it, and it's a beautiful children's book. There you go.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
So she adapted it from her quilt from the same name in 1991. In 1995, she published her memoir, We Flew Over the Bridge. She has now written and illustrated more than 15 other children's books. In 1995, she published her memoir, We Fly Over the Bridge. She has now written and illustrated more than 15 other children's books. In recognition of her contributions as an artist and activist, Ringgold has received countless awards, including a National Endowment for the Arts Award, and the Guggenheim Fellowship for Painting, and an NAACP Image Award. Her works continue to be exhibited in major museums around the world.
Wait, so the 15 books that she's made for children, were those like all based off of her quilt, or like did she just continue to come up with more stories for these children books?
So I think she's always been. She kind of talks about how she's always been a storyteller.
Oh, I love that.
And the quilts, yeah, they inspire her work, and she's inspired by like creating, right? And I think they're definitely worth checking out for sure. They're really cute. So something that I admire from her work is that she can hit such serious topics, but also do it in a way so children can understand just their history.
Yeah.
You know, like this piece right here that we're looking at is We Come to America. She made this quilt in 1997, and it's a story quilt, which is something that she invented, story quilt, showing Black people drowning in the New York City waters. And you see Lady Liberty right here, and she's a Black woman holding a child, and in the water is all of these slaves that are drowning. And these are all the slaves, just paying tribute to all the slaves that died on their way to America.
Wow.
The U.S.
And from what it looks like here, it looks like you can see almost like this smoke coming from Lady Liberty's torch. And it almost looks like that's possibly what crashed the boat and made these slaves drown. What? It almost looks as if that has like a deeper meaning.
It definitely could. I mean, I've heard interpretations that like there's like an African deity, and I don't have all the information right now because I'm just pulling this out of memory, but I know that they say that she actually was saving. She's the African deity of the ocean, and she actually was saving her children by taking them into the sea with her.
Oh my gosh.
So that's just
that's an interpretation.
Yeah, that's an interpretation. It could also be that. But yeah, it's definitely a more serious quilt.
Yeah.
For sure. But yeah, it's beautiful nonetheless.
And I'm gonna be honest, like, when I first saw this picture, I was like, oh, this is, like, a painting on canvas. And then, like, after you talking about it a little bit more, I'm like, oh my god, wait, this is a quilt!
Yeah.
This is beautiful. And this is the one that's hung in the, what was the name of the museum?
This one is, in ACA Galleries in New York City. This one is, the other one, the one that I'm talking about, the one that I saw at the Museum of Modern Art was Faith Ringgold's American People Series 20, Die.
Oh, okay.
So if you want to pull that one up.
Yeah.
So in this painting, we have several different figures, and it looks like there's a whole lot of murdering going on. I remember standing in front of this and just feeling this overwhelming, just, like, panic.
Yeah, okay.
And I just, really, the more you try to kind of find, because the story behind it, I just can't see it from this. Just, to me, it's death, really. It looks like some of the figures are black, some of the figures are white. There's even children in it, children bleeding, just people kind of trampling on top of each other. That's how it looks like to me.
Yeah, so I think that now, after you explaining a little bit, the way that I could interpret this, you know, is it's like, while, like, there's children that are cowering, like, on the floor, and they look scared and they look frightened, and one child is white and one child is black, and it looks like they're scared because their parents, who are a mix of white and black people, are acting out towards each other in rage and are killing each other. And it almost seems like this was almost new to this generation of smaller children, because then you see a woman who appears to be white holding her white child towards a black man. And the way that I can interpret that is kind of like how I've been seeing the Karens modernly, where it's like, you know, they're acting out towards Black Lives Matter protesters, and they're doing it in front of their children, which is then influencing their children to want to be racist towards black people. So that's kind of how I'm interpreting this and how I'm seeing it. But yeah, no, I feel the intensity coming from this piece.
Wow. I actually really like that interpretation. I see that as well, for sure. All I know is that there is just a spread of violence, and I think she really nails it, and you definitely feel that, like, especially when you're in front of the piece. It's overwhelming.
Yes, and, you know, referring back to, like, the people kind of looking, like, scary, the more that I look at it, they almost look like zombies. Like, they almost look like zombies, and, like, they're tired and they're, like, blinded by something of some sort, almost. Wow. Yeah, I could imagine that you stare at this for quite some time, because I can continue staring at it and just keep analyzing it.
So the next piece I want to look at is Ringgold's dancing on the Washington Bridge. So in an interview with Ringgold, she kind of talks about how she thinks that the perfect representation for a woman is a bridge, because she says women are what holds us together. You know, if it's not for women, if it's not for these bridges, we couldn't, like, meet each other halfway, right? And I think she ends up kind of going into, she makes a few pieces, like, with bridges, and I think that's something that really fascinates her, and she just she sees that's like the perfect representation of a woman, a bridge.
Yeah, and, you know, it kind of makes me think back to our gay panic defense episode, you know, and, like, how we were talking about how fucking wonderful women are and how they don't just act in violence and how they're not as violent as men, you know, and it's just like, that's just one little area of it. But I feel like this just kind of adds value to that statement, saying how great women are and how they